Welcome everyone to this. whew, this is our final Venus and Gemini morning star gathering, and so amazing. It's always so incredible to see everybody's faces, and here we are on the verge, very much on the threshold. So we're really, Kaylin and I are really excited to be doing this final class, and it's always really incredible when we have the Earth star chakra to work with. And hopefully you all enjoyed those two videos that we had created prior to this. Um, I don't know, for myself, I always feel like this moment before we enter the underworld is always strangely, I don't know if you feel this, Kaylin, but I always feel like this anticipation, like I'm excited. I mean, even if intensity is happening, I know in my world there definitely is a lot of shakeup, right on time. Um, but Right. But I think pretty much most people who are drawn to this, we really, really get at a deep level how necessary the purification and the surrendering aspect is to our journey. And so, um, even when we're navigating the medicine of Gemini, which is not known for its propensity to love the dark or to love any kind of what might be perceived of as intense emotion, which can be something we encounter here, even though it's going to be different for all of us. Um, even that, even this, we can, uh, well, and we're doing it together. It just, first the Libra cycle and now the Gemini cycle. And now that we've moved into so much Aquarius, I think we all sense and feel and know that this collective medicine and doing it together is just increasingly important. It's just really what our souls are calling for. So I'm just gonna open a little differently this time. Actually, I'm gonna start by I'm gonna read this poem, but before that, I'm gonna just do something that I think has felt really nurturing for me, and that I've done in other circles, which is, and it's an interesting thing to do in a Gemini circle, Gemini Venus circle, but I think it speaks to the need we have to really drop into ourselves, drop into our bodies, drop into the present moment, and to be held. And so what it is just to begin to just feel, just put our hands on our maybe our shoulders and just kind of almost like giving yourself a hug, and just feeling the pressure of your fingers on your shoulders and your arms on your chest, with the intention to know that through whatever passage you're going through right now, whatever passage we're going through collectively, that we are held, we are contained, that this kind of womb space that we're entering now is a space where we are truly supported and guarded, and the container is strong, the container is nourishing for us to do whatever this deep transformation and purification is that's asked of each of us, which is going to look different. So continuing to just let your hands be drawn to whatever part of your body is needing just your kind of gentle but supportive touch, with the intent again to just bring us completely home into our bodies, into the physical. And as we breathe, maybe even to continue to drop into that sensation of gravity, the blessing of gravity, the blessing of the heaviness of the body that reminds us that we are ever supported. And so we're just in these moments, just continuing to let ourselves drop further and further into the present moment, into our bodies, into this experience of being on the earth, into this experience of being profoundly held as we begin, as we open the way for this miraculous, unprecedented, powerful, and magical portal into to activate the Earth Star chakra, which is really opening us into the underworld period of this incredible journey that we get to do together. So, so as I continue, as I'm reading this poem, now you're invited. You can maybe just close your eyes and listen, and let the words just kind of sink into you, just infuse your body as you continue to just maybe feel whatever parts of your body want that just kind of gentle but firm pressure of I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm where I need to be, I'm held, I'm supported, as we move more deeply into this initiatory journey. All right. Okay. So This is the Earth Sky Woman poem dedicated to the Gemini goddess at the Earth Star Chakra gates. Begin to drop beneath the surface of things, sister of my heart. Go down to the root of yourself. See and know it for the first time. Make a home for yourself there. Visit often. Make an offering of your tears, words of compassion, kindness, and heartfelt joy. When your life extends from the home root of your soul self, it is true and strong and shining. You will grow wings, yes. Your spirit will soar, yes. Yet you will remain always sourced in the true heart of life. Here you know the thousand things worth knowing. When from this place you offer your words of grief, praise, and the sacred dark light at the center of your being, the whole world exhales in great relief. Sky welcomes your outstretched arms. Moon sings for you, remembering your lost parts. And stars speak to you once again in the language of kinship, lovers, sisters, brothers, grandfathers, and fairy grandmothers.
Beautiful. And then we just have one more prayer. And if you want to say this with me, feel free to do that, or however you want to experience the invocation to the divine feminine power of surrender, death, and rebirth. A process that is perhaps already calling you. Wondrous, creative rainbow goddess, guiding souls in total alchemy and transformation. Here in the womb of transformation, where I am held, supported, and safe to face my fears and shadow side, thank you for helping me transmute all that holds me back from knowing and expressing my true self. Help me feel all my uncomfortable feelings, including uncertainty, judgment, arrogance, self-hatred, negative self-effacement, and self-doubt. Thank you for guiding me and transmuting these feelings into confidence and courage so I no longer project these feelings onto others, blaming others for what I am experiencing within myself. Oh, mighty wise inner self, thank you for showing me the precious secrets of surrender. Guide me in letting go of everything in the way of expressing my truly empowered divine self as I restore cosmic wisdom within myself, and in so doing, inspire others to do the same. It is done, it is so, and we give thanks. Blessed be.
So today we are going to begin, as we do, with the breakout session. And this, of course, is such an important thing right now as we prepare for our collective and yet so individual journey. Then Sky Magic, which is going to be a little bit longer. I mean, we have more going on, of course, because it's going to be covering the whole period of time into the underworld. And there's so much happening that's amazing. And then speaking into the Gemini Meta Goddess at the 8th gate and Underworld, Gemini Goddess's Psychopomp, how it is that we release fears, and remembering the whirling rainbow prophecy. And then we'll talk about home play, and then hopefully we'll have lots of time for the Q&A.
Yay! So we might have a couple of new people with us. So just in case we do, and even if not, it's helpful to remember that joining the session is optional. The breakout session is optional. And the purpose of these sessions is to help foster community and offer mutual support. So if that's not something you feel you need and you don't want to do it, that's completely up to you to decide. I think that if you're staying in the main room, Tammy, you want them to turn off their video?
Yeah, if you decide not to join a room, yeah, just turn off your video and mute yourself, and then I'll know, because I will be kind of busy making sure the rooms are correct, that we've got somebody in every room, and also I'll be making sure to send little messages. We're going to spend probably there will be 2 to 3 people in every room, and so we'll take about 9 minutes is what we tend to take, 9 to 10. So once it's time to switch, I'll do my best at those 3-minute markers to let you know that and send you a little message to the group. So,
Right.
yeah.
And so that we're here to listen and be heard. So what we encourage you to do is just to listen, not crosstalk or interrupt, and give, unless somebody asks you for some feedback or whatever, because we're not here to fix or judge. If somebody's going through a difficult time, sometimes all they need is to be heard. I know that's been true for me when I've been through difficult times. Sometimes it's also been helpful to get advice, but I like it when I get to ask for it. So hopefully we just keep that in mind and being mindful of the time to give everybody an opportunity to share. And then also you can, if you want to continue the conversation by mutual agreement, you can do personal messaging with each other after the class, or during, you can do a personal message in the chat during this class, that kind of thing. So what you want to do is start with your name and where you're from, and maybe the greatest gift or highlight from your Venus journey in the past month, uh, or your biggest challenge, or maybe a little of both. Doesn't, there's no specific rule. But you could consider what you've released, what you've cleared, what you've transformed. And this says sacral chakra energy. I forgot to update that. It's supposed to say root chakra energy because we've been in the root chakra. So I think that's all the preface we need if you're ready to put everybody in a room.
Yeah, and you know what I wanted to just say, Kaylin, that maybe you could talk about the last month, but for those who are new, or really anybody, if you feel drawn to actually talk about what the gifts, the challenges have been, highlights for the morning star phase, you're welcome to do that as well, because this is
Yeah.
kind of our time to together to speak into the bigger journey.
Yeah, these are really just suggestions.
Yeah,
There are no rules, just
yeah.
guidelines.
Yes, because Gemini doesn't like rules.
That's
So
right.
I've gone ahead then and opened the breakout rooms. I didn't want to rush that. So you're just going to want to join. And again, don't join if you don't want to be part.
Hi, Enid. It's so great to see you. You're muted because I can't hear you. There she is. Okay, and I am, just so everybody knows, I've got my recording going. I think I'll just pause the Zoom recording. I think we're recording again now. Okay. All right. So we're gonna just to get a sense. So for those of you who might not know, what happens when Venus is going into the underworld is she's on the other side of the sun from the Earth. So when Venus and the sun are conjunct, that they're in this line. So we have the Earth, the sun, and Venus, but way over here. So it takes her anywhere from 60 to 90 days to be in this place. And interestingly, Sky and Telescope was saying that Venus is, for many people, is already out of the morning sky. I haven't been able to see her for a while.
Me neither.
So it, we use this 10-degree orb as the sort of demarcation of when Venus goes into the underworld, but it can already be there. And Tammy and I had this great experience back in 2017 when Venus left the evening sky one night, and the next morning was the morning sky. And that just was mind blowing for us, because it's supposed to be 7 or 8 days, but it doesn't always happen that way. That's just the kind of average, or the, what it tends to do. So we may already be in the Venus underworld.
Yeah, and it does also have to do with the actual sign Venus is in, and the angle. And actually, Gemini Brett does a lot of really awesome work around that.
Yeah, the declination, and I don't know all the other technical terms for that, but anyway, so here we are, just looking at what's happening. And I did see the moon this morning, and of course I didn't, Venus was so low, it was in the trees, I think, so I didn't see it this morning. But here we can see, this is what it looks like in the Southern Hemisphere, because we have a lot of people in our class that are in the Southern Hemisphere, so it's fun to put that in. And here's what it looks like in the Northern Hemisphere. So,
Well, and maybe, just in the chat, if anybody has seen Venus wherever you're at, it would be interesting to know that,
yeah,
because I know, like, my sister in Guadalajara, she'll often see Venus, just because of her location close to the equator, she'll see Venus for a lot longer.
right. Yeah, exactly. So like if you're on the ocean and you have an eastern
Mhm.
horizon on the ocean, you might see, because that's a very low horizon line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if you have any kind of hills or anything, you might not be seeing Venus already.
Or if you live in a place with a lot of clouds in the winter.
Right? Uh, yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Somebody was asking about being out of bounds. So, one, I'll just say something quickly about the out of bounds. Venus will go out of bounds every year when it's in the signs of Gemini, Cancer, and Sagittarius, Capricorn. So, if it's in Aquarius, it's never going to be out of bounds. If it's in any other sign, it's never going to be out of bounds. So, just for people to know that, that's one way you can always know. And it's not always out of bounds when it's in those signs. So, you have to kind of check on that. Anyway, so but this next Venus moon gate, theoretically visible because Venus is still more than 10 degrees, 11 degrees from the sun. So we use this 10-degree orb because that's usually when a planet is not visible, is when it's 10 degrees. But again, like we said, there was this time when Venus disappeared one night and the next morning reappeared. So the 10-degree mark isn't always going to tell us what's visible and not visible. In fact, I was at Faywood one year. This is where there's a standing stone circle, hot springs, and we did a lot of events there in years past. And we were seeing Venus in the morning sky, and she was visible a lot longer than I mean, she was like 7 or 8 degrees from the sun. We could still see her. So
Yeah.
again, it's not always going to be the case that it's 10 degrees, but that's just, we use that marker. That's what astronomers use. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, and so with that, then just considering that most of us aren't really going to see this Earth star chakra gate, but it really is almost like we get just a tiny bit more of an introduction to the underworld before we go into it. You
Yeah.
know?
Right. And I think, so we could say technically we have this eighth gate, this Earth star, death by intent, and that we're making a conscious choice. And I
Yeah,
think that it's just
yeah,
really good to emphasize that it is about a conscious choice.
yeah.
This is something else I wanted to just show is because we've got Jupiter and Saturn in the goatfish, but they're in the sign of Aquarius. Venus is in the sign of Aquarius moon. The sun, of course, is also in Aquarius right now. Mercury is retrograde in Aquarius. And they're in this constellation we call the goatfish. It's also known as Capricorn. But this is the reason why people get so confused, because the astronomers call it Capricornus and the astrologers call it Capricorn, but it's not the seasonal sign that is just like when the sun enters Aquarius, it's 60 days before the spring equinox. That's a season. It's
Mm,
representing the season. Just to give you that a sense again of why that is. And you can just see there's this incredible lineup
yeah.
of, Aquarius planets happening here on February 10th, early in the morning. This is about 7:20 a.m. Right before the moon is exactly with Venus.
Yeah. And that's not even showing Vesta, right?
No,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's not. Yeah. So, and then this is again, so you can see how low on the horizon this is Venus with Jupiter exact on February 11th. And they're going to be at 12 Aquarius, and Saturn's going to be above them, maybe more easy to see than Jupiter or Venus. I don't know. So just so you know that that's the possibility, and if you go out and if you have binoculars, then you might have a better chance of seeing it. But the thing for us to be aware of is that it's our opportunity to tune in and just even if you as in our breakout group, one person was saying something about she doesn't get to see Venus that much anymore, but she uses the sky maps and having the sense in her mind of what's going on, and that's really what this helps us to do, is to tune in even if we can't see it.
And at some point, you just get into that habit, even when you can't, you just imagine how far she is when the sun rises. You can kind of almost see her there in your imagination. You can tell about how far she is. And you kind of see her with your inner eye.
Yeah, exactly. And the star maps help us get a sense of where we
Mhm,
would be looking if we
mm,
could see her.
mhm.
Right. So on February 13th, Venus is officially entering the underworld when she's exactly 10 degrees from the sun. So the sun at 25 and Venus at 15 Aquarius. Uh, so that's kind of the official, like if we're using that 10-degree mark to describe that. And so then Venus will be in the underworld. Well, first of all, we would look at the eighth gate as being from February 10th till March 12th, when the next Venus Moon conjunction happens, though we can't see it. But one of the things we discovered in this process is that eighth gate will sometimes only be like 3 days in this, similar to the situation like before Venus dropped from the underworld. But we could still be working with the energy of it for until the next Venus Moon conjunction, even though we won't see that Venus Moon conjunction because it's with the new moon. And so we've got that going on. We've got the Aquarius new moon that'll start a new Chinese year, the year of the ox, on February 11th. And Venus is exactly conjunct Jupiter, as we just showed in the slide before. And then on the 12th and 13th, Venus conjuncts Mercury, retrograde Mercury, and Venus enters the underworld until May 3. And that's when it's technically rising into the evening sky. Now, here's the other thing about the Venus is when she rises into the evening sky, she's not as easy to see as when she rises into the morning sky because she's so far away from the Earth. So again, that's based on degrees and your horizon line, and a lot of other factors can determine whether you will see her that early. And I have seen her that early, but you had to really know where you were looking, and you had to have a just be patient and watch, so because she'll drop below the horizon after the sun sets, sometimes pretty quickly. So yeah. Then we're going to have Mercury conjunct Jupiter, Saturn square Uranus on February 17th. And the reason I wanted to put that in there is because all this Aquarius energy is so magnified, and Venus will be in Aquarius until February 25th. And so all the Aquarian happenings, and Saturn square Uranus is going to happen 3 times this year. And it's really speaking to how we are getting to question our reality. And Venus being in the underworld is a really great time to do that. Like, are things as really real as I think they are? Are things as really, if I change my belief in how I'm seeing things, does that change my reality? Yes, it will. If you can hold a new perspective for any length of time, it will change. And I'll probably share a little bit more about this, but I really did a deep dive in the last Venus cycle, my Venus return in 2004, not the last one, but it was two Venus returns ago, in 2004. And I've been looking back at that time and some of the things I journal about then, and I see that my life is totally different now, completely changed. Like, I don't even recognize myself from what was then and what is now. So this stuff works. I'm just like feeling pretty blown away by that. Anyway, then Venus will square Mars on February 19th. And we watch that Venus Mars dance because it's the sacred feminine, the sacred masculine, and Mars is in Taurus, and also Uranus is in Taurus. So that dance between those energies, and how Venus in Aquarius is talking to Mars in Taurus. So is there anything you want to add to that, Tammy?
Oh, we've had so much of that interesting, it's not polarity, but kind of Venus square Mars, and then even Saturn square Uranus. That's also, Saturn is very much about constraint. Uranus is so expansive. Jupiter and Saturn conjunct. There's just so much of that very, very dynamic
Yeah.
energy we're learning to navigate. The
And
underworld is not a still, steady place. That's for sure. Not this time.
right. And with the Uranian energy being most like Aquarius, but Taurus being very grounded and earthy, and all this Aquarius energy, and it's really inviting us to have a whole new way of looking at things, really questioning what is that really true? How do I know it's true?
Yeah.
Well, who would I be without that belief?
And how
Right?
refreshing, right? If people really, more and more and more of us really did, like, just generally speaking, we really did question our assumption about what's real.
Yeah, and because Uranus is very revolutionary, so is Aquarius, and so it's about an evolution of expansion of the mind and how we perceive our reality, how we see things, but also with it, Uranus and Taurus, it's how we feel it and how it's embodied within us. So,
Yeah.
and then Mars is also going to be asking that question too because it's also in Taurus.
Mm,
So pretty cool.
mhm.
And then Venus will enter Pisces, as I said, on February 25th. There's going to be the Venus Moon conjunction in the underworld on March 12th, and then the Venus new moon with Neptune on March 13th. And we're not done. So we could say from the Gemini underworld, it lasts from February 13th to May 3rd. And we're going to have the spring equinox in there. We're going to have Venus going into Aries right in the spring equinox window. We're going to have Venus conjunct the Sun exact on March 25th or 26th, depending on your time zone. And it's going to be very close to Chiron when that happens. And then Venus will be with Chiron on the 28th. So we have this in the underworld, Venus with Chiron, an underworld initiator who is
Yeah.
helping us to transmute and transform all our wounds into our medicine. This just feels like
Yeah.
wow to me, like whoa, we've got a supercharged underworld time with Chiron
Yeah.
also stepping in to support Venus and transmuting and transforming anything that holds her back from being her powerful, creative, playful, wild, fun self.
Right. Well, and then Mercury is going to also aspect Chiron then I suppose in that period.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't put that in, but Mercury does go into Aries on the 3rd, and so we'll be catching up. And
Yeah.
we as we're doing this class, Mercury is retrograde. It doesn't go direct until February 20th, and that will also be an interesting time because we'll enter a time when all the planets are moving forward, all are in direct motion, and that'll last for like 60 days, 66 days, I
Mhm.
think it is. It's going to be a
Right.
long time of a big forward push. So that's going to be happening while Venus is in the underworld. Hmm.
Ah,
Uh, the Aries new moon is going to be at 23 Aries. That's near a star called Beta Catos, known as the belly of the whale. And what's really fascinating is this another piece of this is because sometimes when we look at the underworld, it's like going into the belly of the goddess, going into the
yeah.
belly of the underworld to be transmuted and transformed. And so Venus is also going to be with this star that represents the belly of the whale,
Yeah.
where Jonah is swallowed by the whale, the story of Jonah and the whale. And then because he doesn't want to do what he's supposed to do, so he's trying to do something different. And the whale swallows him. And then finally he says, okay, fine, I'll do what you want me to do. And the whale spits him up right where he needs to be. I
Wow.
think that's such a great
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, it's so great. That's my ascendant, so I definitely resonate with that, and I also think it's pretty interesting that when you think about the way that the constellation or the stars intersect with the sign itself, it has to do with having the courage to enter the belly of the whale in a sense.
And just surrender and say, hey,
Surrender.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm I'm just guide me to where I need to be. And hopefully it'll be the place where you're going to find the most fulfillment, the most joy, the most sense of um, getting to be who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All about Aries, yeah.
all that. Yeah. And of course, this is also close to Eris, and she is the goddess of disruption, discord, chaos. um, Basically, kind of similar energy of, what do we need to let go of in order to move
Yeah.
to something that's got that the disruption has to happen in order for something else to come in. It's like if
Yeah.
you're going to plant a garden, you have to dig up the soil.
Yeah.
It's like that's what Eris is here to help us do.
Well, and it seems like so many of these transits, whether it's all the Aquarian energy or the Uranus Saturn square Uranus energy is and Eris is just and even the Aries with Chiron, it's like how can we learn to so many people are talking about how do we make it so that our nervous systems can really have the capacity to be in discomfort and to be with that and hold presence for that and become more what happens to us? What's the magic and alchemy that happens as we cultivate that muscle or more of that capacity? How does that grow our soul? How does that open and deepen us?
And how does it um, happen more quickly when we're not resisting.
Yeah, right.
Aries would really like to know. Let's make this
All
happen
planets
fast.
well, Galen, it's like that, all planets direct or however we're supposed to say that, it always makes me think about that, we are the ones we've been waiting for, and that whole idea of the river when it's and also in Abrahamic thinking, there's that idea when the river is flowing very fast, like all these everything is moving forward very fast. If you get crossways, that discomfort is really intense, but that's why it's like, yes, like to surrender and go with the flow of it
Yeah,
is often and it doesn't mean and be with the discomfort, but don't resist it.
right.
Not that that's easy in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Right. Well, there's also that imagery of holding on to the roots of the tree or the rock,
Yeah,
something on the
right.
bank, and the river's rushing by really fast.
Yeah,
You have to hold on with all your might, and eventually you get exhausted and you have to let go anyway.
yeah, right, right. It's like, do you wanna be strong when you get pulled down there, or do you wanna be exhausted?
Yeah. It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
good
and
to
when you
remember.
right, and when there's so much about choice making, like you're saying, I mean, we're at the death by intent gate, and that's one of the things that's different about Inanna's journey versus Persephone. Inanna and who we are and choosing this course even is about choosing to enter the underworld, and that's radical.
Right. Yeah. And, I mean, sometimes I've had the experience where I've been in the underworld and gone through a lot of rapid change, and it didn't feel super difficult or challenging, but it was intense, or sometimes it was easier than others, depending on what it was, or what was going on, or how much I was resisting, was really the key.
Mm.
So yeah, so some people can go through the underworld and not have it be as, like, it feels like your whole life is being ripped to shreds.
Yeah. It can be, I mean, it can be incredibly magical. It
Yeah.
can be both. It can be all of it.
Yeah, I I remember going when I was going through a Venus cycle and a Pluto cycle at the same time, and we do have Venus square Pluto on April 11th as well as the new moon, so adding to the whole underworld experience. But I remember coming to the realization that I was in immense relief because I could see that I was turning a corner and going into a new life, and totally relieved about it. And I was in immense grief
Mhm.
simultaneously. And there was a
Mhm.
lot of magic happening, and there was a lot of just being shredded to bits
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you do both of these things at the same time? This is interesting, but
Yeah.
it's like you just have to ride it. I think you just have to ride the wave of whatever's happening and just be with it. And on the other side of it is often so incredibly magical.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll have the Venus Moon conjunction again in the underworld at 27 Aries on April 12th. And then Venus will enter Taurus on the 14th. And then we'll have the Sun square Pluto on the 16th, and the Sun will enter Taurus. And then Venus will conjunct Uranus at 10 Taurus. So here's some more of that opportunity because Uranus is helping to bring through what is it that's going to help us accelerate our evolutionary growth. That's what Uranus wants. It's like
Mm.
we don't want to mess around. We don't want to be taken too long. We want this to happen quickly and in ways that maybe we didn't expect or plan for, right? And then Venus Venus and Saturn will be square. So we start out in February with the Saturn Uranus square. Then Venus will conjunct Uranus and square Saturn as she's in the underworld. So there's just so much amazing support for her to go through a complete radical dismantling of the old structures so something new can come in so she can rise up into her strength in a new and amazing way.
Mhm.
And of course, Pluto will station retrograde on April 27th. And then Venus rises as morning star near the Pleiades. And this is interesting because, and she'll make her first evening star moon gate near Aldebaran. And means she's kind of returned to the same place in the sky as this whole journey started. Um, Pretty amazing. And
Yeah.
so one of the things we'll be talking about in the evening star class, the first thing is how Venus will also quickly make a conjunction to the North Node
Mhm.
something very rare. It hasn't happened for 56 years, and it's happening twice in this particular Venus cycle.
Yeah.
So that lets us know that all this underworld, like stirring up and having to compost, or whatever it is that we're doing, to let go of anything that's in the way of being more holy and fully ourselves in that magical, playful Gemini way, um, is going to be supported, and she gets a lot of support to move towards her destiny pretty quickly once she gets
Mhm.
out of the underworld.
Yeah. Well, and I want to also bring in here because when we were first talking, preparing for this course today, Kaylin was telling about some things that had happened in 2004, and it can be useful also in the underworld phase to spend time thinking about what happened 8 years ago. The reason I just think about that is because Venus was transiting the sun. I believe it was at 4 Gemini, isn't that right? In 2012.
Yeah, it
I think
was.
that the transit happened at that degree. So in any case, it's just think about what was happening in like, well, actually, would it be 2013? 8 years,
Well, yeah, because
8 years
Venus
ago. Yeah.
started the cycle
Mhm.
transiting the sun in 2012, and I think it was more
Yeah.
like 12. I want to say it was 12 degrees
Okay.
Gemini, but
Okay.
yeah.
In any case.
But she tends to rise up in the same sign that she
Yeah.
started the whole cycle, and she tends to rise into the evening sky in the same sign. It doesn't always happen that way, and especially when, like we saw this a lot with the Libra Scorpio thing, because there was a dance back and forth between Libra and Scorpio. So as they're shifting signs, the old sign is still really present in a lot of the key points, and the new sign, it takes a few Venus cycles to get completely into the new sign. And Venus has been doing the Medic Goddess Gemini journey since 1948. So
Yeah. So
we've
she's really centered and grounded in Gemini, if
yeah,
such a thing is possible.
you're right. Jill and I will say, yeah, I might have a few tricks for you on that. Anyway, so
So, if any, for those of you who've watched the initial, thanks, Tiara. For any of you who've watched the initial videos that we've made when we were beginning to get the word out about this Gemini Venus cycle, or if you study shamanic astrology, you know that the Gemini meta goddess, we see her as a psychopomp among many of other things. And the psychopomp is a figure. It's a strange word. It's a guide of souls, and it's to the underworld among other destinations. And so, reflecting Gemini's shapeshifter abilities, a psychopomp may appear as an angel, animal spirit, or deity. Anubis, Hermes, the Greek ferryman Charon, I guess that's how you say it, are all kind of well-known psychopomps, or that individual or that being who accompanies us when we die or when we're in the threshold of a different period of life. That's the psychopomp.
and
And
Iris
that's
is a psychopomp.
Iris is too. That should be in there, and she's not, but she's a psychopomp. Okay. So Jung referred to the psychopomp as a figure helping an individual move between the conscious and unconscious realms. So we can think of it in that way as well. And that reflects the ease Gemini travels to and from the world behind this world. She travels into and out of different timelines. That's what we're invited into as we're really deepening our relationship with her. So as a guide, Gemini's underworld forays leave her unscathed. So really many times for those of us who have a lot of Gemini, we may find that we can. I've seen this often with people who work in very, like, I've known people who've worked in Palestine or done work that's incredibly dark for most people, but they have a Gemini moon, so they can go there into the dark place because it doesn't take them apart. They have a certain amount of detachment. So Gemini is going to expect that when she goes to the underworld, it's the other person or the other being that's going to have the dismemberment process, right? In this case, maybe. And yet also it's that she herself is the one who is entering the underworld. So that's just something to consider and feel in the body. How does it feel for Gemini to be the one who goes through her own initiatory death and rebirth, which is what she does every 8 years? So it's one thing to be a guide and quite another to let ourselves be guided. It's one of the
I,
insights that came through.
I just love that so much. And I have a really good friend who is an artist, and she is Gemini rising, so she's learning
Mm,
Gemini. And she liked to take people out into sacred landscapes, and Navajo land and different places. And I helped her like scout things out and so on. And then she'd tell me about the people she had, and how it's like she was thought she was there to guide them through their process, but they took her into a deep dark process herself. And I said,
Yeah.
you've got to do your own shadow work. And
Yes.
I said, once you
Yes.
do that, you will be the guide and you will not be affected by their shadow. And
Mm.
that did happen for her. It's like it took a few times of her doing that, but she finally got to the place where she was like, okay, now I'm doing it.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's what it is like guiding. And she was trying to guide, but she was also being guided actually by the people in her group to see deeper shadow issues.
Wow. Yeah,
So
and if that hasn't happened to any of you in this last Morningstar phase, I'll tell you it sure did for me.
right. Me too. And
I mean, there's been a blowing up of so many teachers and gurus in the last few months, just like the guide, the person who wants to be the guide. And I've had some of this experience too of being the one who's like, nope, it's for you to get dragged into there. And like, no, you got some work to do.
So we could say if you wind up going through this underworld and you don't find yourself having to face your own dark shadow, you've probably done that work already. Good for you. And maybe and here's the thing I also know is I've faced my dark shadow many times, but sometimes I get away with not having to, and I think, oh, I'm so good. And then another cycle comes around and gets
Yeah.
me right in the face. Okay, maybe I'm what shouldn't have been so proud of myself, or thinking whatever.
Mystery.
Anyway, so one of the things we want to do is just to remind you about this underworld time and how we're working with the rainbow goddess. We've been working with the rainbow light body, and we talked in the beginning about the whirling rainbow prophecies and the rainbow warriors, and we talked about the rainbow serpent and rainbow dragons and rainbow stones and other rainbow things, and that many Native American tribes have a rainbow prophecy. And that, this is referring to the keepers of the legends, rituals, and other myths that will return to help restore and heal the earth. And so we just want to be conscious of this while we're in, because the work we do for ourselves is affecting the greater collective. And how we come together with this intention to really support one another in this time of the underworld. So the warriors of the rainbow help unite all people, creating a new world of justice, peace, and freedom. I say yes to that. And they will reteach the values and knowledge that has been lost in time, demonstrating how to have wisdom and extra perception, and how unity, harmony, and love is the only way forward. I say yes to that too.
Mm. Yeah, and that we each get to be that. And it doesn't that it doesn't mean, since we're entering the underworld, that doesn't mean that we don't face the parts of ourselves that may not always be that lofty. But
Right? Well, we live in a world of duality, so
we do.
we're always going to have light and shadow. I just think that's part
Yeah.
of the deal. I finally am accepting that.
But isn't it right, right. Wow. Okay, maybe I'll accept it someday. But isn't it so cool though that like just having color and the full spectrum of color actually helps us address the whole polarity duality issue, because that tells us the truth that it really isn't black and white. I mean, it can't be. Even black and white have the whole spectrum of color. So it's not about transcending, it's about being being in the complexity of the full spectrum and
Right?
seeing it rather than just black and white.
Yeah. And I mean, black, what they say is the absence of color, and white is all the colors together,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I love that.
They're both sacred. Yeah.
So I just want to call your attention. There's this book I came across probably back in maybe the early 90s, The Tales of the Whirling Rainbow, Myths, and just pay attention to the word myths, because we're going to talk about this in a minute, myths and mysteries for our times. And so this whirling rainbow energy I've been aware of for quite some time. And I sometimes forget about it, but this was something we had in one of the very first, I think it was in the very first class. I'm not going to read the prophecy here. It's just this is something you can go back and look at. But just this idea that all people, races, colors, creeds, and this was probably before genders and all that was also added to the whole thing. But
Mm.
anyway, uh, coming together in love, joining hands in unification, and being able to move over the earth like a great whirling rainbow, bringing peace, understanding, and healing everywhere they go. So this is something you may want to just tune into and see where you're at with this possibility of this prophecy. Because I feel like we're in a time when I think the Gemini meta goddess can help us to begin to fulfill this prophecy in ways that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's just
Beautiful.
some images that you might see in the sky of the rainbow around the sun. And many of the native cultures will say that if you see something like this, these are sundogs, that that is a symbol of the whirling rainbow. And sometimes you'll see it like as a complete rainbow around the sun, in different ways, or sometimes you'll just see a little bit in the sky. And I always get so excited when I see those because it's like I feel like it's letting me know that I'm on track somehow with this piece. And then I found this. This is like a rainbow around the moon, and I felt inspired to put this in because the I was having a big experience with the whirling rainbow in Hawaii, and I'm going to share about that now. Um, Back in 2004, and I was at the end of my Venus return at the beginning, right in the right as Venus was transiting the sun. So that's the ending of a cycle and the beginning of a new cycle, the metamorphic underworld, when there's this whole transformation taking place. And I wound up in Hawaii for 24 days. I was planning to be there for a week. Lots of reasons why that happened, but the universe was conspiring to make sure I was there. And I wound up having these amazing adventures. And I've been kind of time traveling back to that, reading my journals. And in my journal, I read this last night, and I had to add this to um, the the slides, and I updated the slides on the main page so you can get it. So you'll have it there. But there was a woman named Marilyn Ferguson, and she wrote a book called The Aquarian Conspiracy that I read. And when I was in Hawaii, somebody gave me the book, Surfers of the Zavuya, and I spelled it wrong here, sorry about that. It's supposed to be a U, not an A after the V. Um, but she wrote the introduction to this book. And this is what she wrote. And it feels like this is something for us to take into the underworld with us as we're going through this, as we're also been talking about the Gemini meta goddess is the new world storyteller and all of that. So she says, one thing has become evident. Our culture has little understanding of myth or the role of the myth maker. Myths are not for believing or disbelieving, they are for using. If a myth or a metaphor works in revamping our deepest values, it is truer than the evening news or the textbook fact. Myth, poetry, art, and music are truths of a different dimension, sustenance and regeneration for the tired spirit. The human brain learns best by story, by game, by a framework of meaning. And that's so Gemini. I just loved reading that. And I was like, oh, this is just something to keep in mind as we're going in there. And also then the whole idea of the Zavuya, which is from the Mayan culture, and Jose's Arguelles's book about it. And I remember I got totally tripped out reading this book while I was camping around Oahu in 2004. And so basically he says it's the Mayan term for the big memory circuit or a memory hotline, working interdimensionally, individually and collectively, connecting past to future like a figure eight. And it's at the apex or the point of the figure eight where the two circles come together, that's the present. And so, and it's equally connected to the past and the future. And it's fueling synchronicity. It's the pipeline for magic, a wave connecting 3D reality to all the other dimensions. So how cool is that? And so then the Zavuya is elaborated by the force of imagination. It resonates with our finer possibilities, the power of the inert placebo to relieve pain, the power of intention to alter the subtlest of psychological events, the power of expectation to influence what we see and hear. So just reminding us of how much power we really do have, as long as we're not attached to what it looks like and what the outcome is. And when I was in Hawaii in 2004, one of the things I kept writing about was how I was letting go of my attachment to how I thought it should look, because it didn't look anything like I thought it should at that time. And it all turned out way better than I could have ever imagined. So it took a little while. It took many months, probably almost 2 years, but it definitely did. So just something for us to think about as we're in the underworld and to work with and to trust that process, whatever is being dismantled in our life, whatever is being um, taken apart. And it then, just trusting that it's for a good reason and it's going to take us where we want to be. Anything more, Tammy, before we?
I love all of it so much. Like I told you when you brought it up, just the whole myth making aspect. I think that's so vital for us to learn and consider right now. And I love that you found all of this because I just think it brings alive Gemini and what we're here for collectively at a level that we just really need.
So synchronistic,
Yes.
synchronicity
Yeah.
being
And that's what it's also about, right?
because this book was literally hiding in a drawer. This journal that I had
Uh-huh.
hiding in
Right?
a drawer for years. I've not even seen it. And then suddenly it just came up and I was like, oh, I have to read this. And I opened it up and then all this stuff was here. High magic, definitely high magic.
Yeah.
So inspired by Pamela Ashley posting this on the Facebook page, this uh, Turkish agate that is like rainbow, such a rainbow thing. I was like, oh, we're going into the underworld where you would think you wouldn't see rainbows, but guess what? You can see them in the stones. And so I just wanted to inspire people to think about
I love that.
that. So
Wow.
yeah.
So after all that magic, so awesome. There's a little bit more black and white, I guess. Releasing Gemini metagoddess fears at the Earth Star chakra and the underworld. These are just some of the ways we can consider this. We might ask, in what areas of my life have I been on the sidelines rather than immersed fully in the flow of life? And what would it look like? How would it look to choose differently? What would it take? How would it look to choose differently? Where has ancestral pain guided my path, and what would it take to lay that down and choose the path of joy and liberation, freedom? That's very much at the Earth Star chakra. There can be that ancestral kind of aspect that comes in. What must die in my life to create space for my full creativity and soul expression to flourish? And where in my life have I been postponing making a painful decision? And what will it take to finally take decisive action? Might sound like a strange thing to do in the underworld, but with so much Aries, it may well be also. In these squares, there's choice points, and that can be the initiation into deeper surrender.
And anything we're avoiding will tend to come up in the underworld anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
Right. So
Thank goodness.
yes.
Uh, so,
Even if we don't like it at first, it's always a good
right.
thing in the end, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Whew. So, home play for the Gemini Meta Goddess at the Soul Star chakra, and I'm sorry, the Earth Star chakra in the underworld. I said that wrong. Um, is that this is home play, but also just remember for any of you who feel like you've gotten behind, or if you've just joined, because there are some of you who've just joined, that what we can do at this gate and in the underworld is that you have plenty of time to go through each of the gates. This is the time it's all compressed, and you can go through any gate you feel like you didn't really work with strongly enough. You can do the classes, you can do Kalen's meditations. When we've got the Venus or the Sky Temple, you can do those. Whatever you wish to do to catch up, it's a good time for that as well. So that's part of it. Also, if you remember in the video, and we'll have this in the home play doc that you can print, the videos about the underworld, we also offered some ideas of how it is that you can create an underworld altar. So we talked about that. And one other piece that you may wish to do is a fear, an exercise specifically for the Gemini meta goddess, which is to face your fears. Because Gemini can be so good at postponing and not wanting to face the fears or the intense emotions. So this is something you can be like Inanna, um, death by intent, intend it and make the choice to actually face your fears. So in your Venus journal, identify 1 to 3 areas in your life where you are postponing making a decision because it may cause pain to you and or another. Explore the cost this procrastination is having on you. What proportion of your attention, focus, clarity, and energy are tied up in struggling with yourself around these areas? How is this causing you to live superficially rather than with greater depth and aliveness? And what would it take to choose differently? Choose 1 to 3 of these areas and take action, reclaiming the energy you've been using to avoid life and choosing to meet it. And even as I say that, sometimes when we're engaging the magic of Gemini, taking action might be to bring it fully into prayer, like in a big way, and asking that an elegant solution present itself. Asking that you be given a way that's you can make that choice, you can make that decision, and it can be with the most grace and ease. But that's just an invitation for you to face something you've been avoiding.
I love that. And, as you were saying that, it reminded me that I think on Netflix now people can access the movie Hook with Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman. And it is how Peter Pan makes a choice to grow up, and he literally
Right?
becomes a corporate pirate.
Right. Wow, it's been a long time.
And then his children are abducted by Hook, and he has to go back to Neverland to rescue them. He doesn't remember any of his magic. He doesn't have his happy thought. He has to figure out what that is. And so when he finally comes back from Neverland, and we could say Neverland really winds up being his underworld experience, right? Because
Wow,
he
that's awesome.
realizes how much he's lost of himself. And and he doesn't really want to look at that. He kind of resists at first, and then he finally is like, I got to save my children. So he does embrace the whole
Wow.
thing. It is
Wow.
brilliant. And
That's awesome.
I saw it pop up, and I was like, oh, I have to watch this again, because I've always thought that it's a way of helping Gemini see how Gemini can recover its magic. Like
Wow.
there's a whole process that Hook goes through around that. And I mean, not Hook, Robin Williams as Peter Pan goes through
Yeah.
all of that. And he comes back more fun, more magical, and I think he stops being a corporate pirate.
That's just so awesome. I don't think I ever even saw that movie. I just saw the trailer. Now I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just how perfect is the timing that it's now on Netflix, and it hasn't been for. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen it there before, ever. So
Wow.
I
How
actually have a
interesting.
DVD of the movie because I just thought it was such a good Gemini movie.
That's
So this
awesome.
is just for the people that are we most everybody in the class, I'd say about 2/3 of the people in the class are signed up for the Evening Star as well. But for those of you who just did the Morning Star, we do now have the page to sign up for the Evening Star if you want to do that. Our first class will be on May 2nd, prior to Venus. Right, actually rising from the underworld, and also prior to the gate, because it's too close to Mother's Day to do it on that Sunday. So we decided to do it a little earlier than that. So yeah, I think we're complete with that.
Ah, awesome. I can't believe we really did time bend because that seemed like more content than normally, and we still have 23 minutes.
Gemini magic at work.
Yeah, serious time stretching. Thanks, Sark. I
Right.
love how she talks about that.
Yeah. So any questions, any comments, any insights, any ahas, anything you want to share, you can raise your hand or just unmute yourself, and we'd love to hear from you.
I have a comment and a question. I loved your video on this skate. The two of you were like cracking up so much, and it just brought such levity to an otherwise kind of heavy gate. So I just wanted to say I just thought it brought some joy and smile and fun to me. I've not been having much fun lately. So it was really good. And my question has to do with the story of Inanna. Um, and I'm just a little confused about this. So Erishkigal is Inanna's sister,
Mm.
correct? And how did she end up in the underworld? So and so that's one question. How did she end up in the underworld?
Mm.
And then is Inanna's journey to the underworld to rescue her sister? Is that what she initially is that what she initially set out to do? So those are my questions.
Those are great questions, Faye. Thank you.
I've been really thinking about this.
So
Yeah,
I
I don't know
don't know
why, but
exactly how Ereshkigal or Reshkigal, or however you want to pronounce her name, winds up in the underworld. She's the dark goddess. and Anana is queen of heaven and earth, right? So she's the light goddess. And
And
really,
Aristotle
I
is
think
the
they're
queen of
two of
the
the
underworld.
what?
She's the queen of the underworld.
Ereshkigal or
Yeah,
Ereshkigal
Ereshkigal is,
is the queen
yeah.
of the underworld, yes. But I feel like they're that light and dark aspect. They're not separate, really. I mean, they call her their sisters, but it's like they're really what Anana is choosing is coming face to face with her dark self. She's
Yeah.
that's
So, and correct me if I'm wrong here, doesn't, you know how when she goes and she asks everybody, or look, if I'm not back in 3 months, come find me. And then I love those two little things that emulate her pain, which is so
Yeah.
Gemini. It's just such a,
Mm.
oh, my arm, all this. So, and then um, is it a choice? Is it a conscious choice by Erishkigal to forfeit her life, and then she gives her life to Anana, or no? Am I messing that up?
yeah, you're messing it up.
Okay.
Well, let me just say too, I think we really may, at some stage, I think it would be fun and useful for us, especially to engage everyone who's been doing this with us for so long. As you said, Kit, I mean, this is a time for us to dream into what is the new story. And I know probably you do this, Kaylin, when I do Venus journeys for people, when I do Venus readings, I take them through the Inanna story, and I've sometimes changed it. It's sometimes evolved and changed. So I think many of the original versions of the story about Ereshkigal, it's about Inanna choosing to go to the underworld to pay her respects for the death of Ereshkigal's husband, the bull god. And there's all kinds of significance to that, right, Kaylin?
It's the turning of an age, the
Yeah.
end of the age of quote unquote Taurus, or we could say the age of the bull because it wasn't really the season of Taurus. But anyway, so Anana knows that she needs to go to support her sister in her grief.
Okay.
That so she makes a
Yeah.
choice. She from the great
Yeah.
above, she puts her ear to the great below, and she hears the cries of her sister, and she decides she needs to go, but she also knows she might not return. So that's part of the story. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and obvious, we could talk about this for hours, right? I mean, what's the deeper significance of this? But and we each can feel it, right? That's the truth of the story. You feel it when she's in pain, she's writhing, and it is an open question. Is she dying? Is she giving birth? What's happening to her? And what is it about? I'm sure we all have our own felt sense about what this is, about what happens, and who Ereshkigal is, and what part of each of us. I mean, it's interesting, right? Isn't there that moment that when Inanna enters the underworld and her sister kills her? Like, what's that? Like, isn't that ego death that we need, though? I mean, depending on how you want to see it or feel it. And and who's to say the underworld is a bad place? Isn't that maybe what was happening, at the turning of the age? That I often feel that Inanna, when she set her ear to the great below, that's her listening to her deeper soul. Like, it's a calling. That's what we all go through, and making decision to go to the underworld. And maybe, what was Ereshkigal? Why is she painted as such a negative, horrible figure? Like, was she really? And I mean, there's so much, right?
Right. Well, and in the story, uh, Sylvia Pereira wrote a book called Descent to the Goddess,
Mm.
and she talks about some of this and talking about how this is an initiation we all go through. Like what we've been supporting people to go through, and that Erish Giggle is having she is experiencing her own pain, and part of her experiencing that pain was she's trying to kill off a part of herself because they're really one and the same. They're not really separate, but that's how the story shows up. And
Mhm.
so of course she has to give birth back to that part of herself. She
Yeah.
has to because it's a part of her.
It
Right.
isn't the pain, the separation in the first place. Isn't that what that
Yeah.
pain is?
Yeah.
I mean, I've often felt that even when we think about everything that's come up around race over the last year that has been so painful to look at and navigate and awkward, and how do we do it in a good way? Um, how do we bring justice and balance? Like, I often do think as well, it's like there's the separation there too. That's a big part of that pain between us wherever we're coming from in terms of our history and our race and our experience, not just race, but so many things. It's that separation that's so painful, right?
Right. Now, there are different ways the story is told, but there's different ways the story is told from the Sumerian perspective and from the Babylonian perspective.
Yeah.
There's different names for different characters. There's different ways the story is told. But in the, what is it? Samuel Wilkstein and Diane Wilkstein and Samuel Kramer.
Right.
They took the translated text and they tell the story. So that's part of where we get that information from. And basically, Inanna does not have to go and she doesn't have to go. She decides to go because her sister's husband has died, and she is basically going to help. And her high priestess self, that's why she gets all dressed up, with her crown and her staff and her robe and her necklace and her breastplate and all of the accoutrements that represent the different chakras. That's why she gets all dressed up, because she, as priestess, she is going to help do the ceremony to honor the death of the age that is dying. That's why she goes. But she also has to die too.
Yeah, she has to die too. That's like perfect Gemini too, because she probably didn't really expect that. She's like, oh no, not me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's poignant, isn't it? I mean, it's so poignant to consider in this story the depth of it, and that we all get to perceive and feel the grief of what it might have felt like to be ending the more matriarchal, feminine oriented age and moving into more of a patriarchal age. What was the level of grief that was part of that? And yet it was also part of a natural turning of the wheel.
Yeah, somebody was asking about, so the book, I'm remembering the title, is Inanna, Queen of Heaven and Earth by Diane Wilkstein and Samuel Kramer. Yeah. And literally there's a version of it on our website, posted in the articles section, that you can find.
Yeah.
It's not the whole entire story, but it's most of it, I think, but it's posted there from their work. Yeah.
Awesome. And Kathy is mentioning another really beautiful one. I've never read it. Sounds amazing, because Betty DeShong, Uncursing the Dark, Treasures from the Underworld. Wow, what a gift that you've shared that. She also wrote Lady of Greatest Heart, Inanna, Lady of Greatest Heart, which is an incredible book. That Betty DeShong Mador also wrote, or she compiled with this incredible poetry from the priestess Enheduannan. And this priestess she played an incredible role in actually bringing Inanna into ascendancy in the Sumerian pantheon. In a way, you could say, as a radical act of rebellion at a time when the priests were beginning to take over the more traditional feminine culture. So it's an incredible book.
Yeah, and Diara's likening this to the two sides of Sekhmet, the fierce power of love. And, in Sekhmet, she doesn't face the dark goddess, but she does have to face the darker part of herself, and then she's rebirthed into another part of herself. So there is a lot of similarity there. Yeah.
When we get a chance to meet again, I think it would be awesome to like either hear the story or enact the story, or just I want to see it in a play or something. I just feel like I need to see this story.
Gemini, come on, like we need to see this.
Yeah. So Faye, thank you for asking that, because I literally created a 27-minute version of the story. It's an audio version of the story that is posted on the bonus page for people that are taking this. And so you can go and listen to that, and it takes you through the whole entire story, through all the gates, through the whole thing in 27 minutes.
And that's found, again, just tell me really quickly where on.
So when you go to the class page and you see the bonus content that you can access, and you have to have the password and click on the link and have the password.
Great. Thank you.
It's there. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Kaylin, would you also say then that this underworld phase is about dying to some of the distortion of the patriarchal era that's going away? Because the last one was about dying to the matriarchal, and we're clearly at a turning of an age. So aren't we releasing a lot of these things that have kept us so repressed and unaware of who we are so that we can fully embody that, especially in Taurus. Yeah.
Well, and it's the constellation of the bull that was dying, that was setting, right, as in the during the spring or something, when I don't remember exactly the astronomy of it, but I think it was the great bull of heaven was setting, and that was the death of Ereshkigal's husband, and but also symbolized the death of the matriarchy, as you're talking about. So so yeah, and we could maybe even imagine, and this is something Tammy and I have contemplated, is that the Capricorn cycle, when Venus now rises closest to the December solstice, because they used the spring equinox in the Sumerian and Babylonian times, but now we might, because we've got the sun on the cross at galactic center at December solstice, and it's not the spring equinox on the cross at the galactic edge anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah, we feel that the Capricorn cycle potentially is the beginning point, maybe.
Right.
But also, I mean, what you're saying, Mary, I mean, I feel like that flavors every journey we do, is that, you know, because every time we introduce a different meta goddess, and you know, because you've been guiding with us the whole time, right? That archetype is, we are grieving in a sense the whole way down all the distortions or all the patriarchal burden, distortion around that specific feminine archetype, what the cost has been, and grieving that in a sense in the underworld, and then doing a renewal. And so yeah, I love that you say that, because there is, you know, there is grief, I think, and I love it because what is the grief, just to be very basic about it, that each of us might feel around the cost of patriarchy, or just the culture we live in. What is the cost to the part of ourselves that's playful? What is the cost to the part of ourselves that's magical? What's the grief that comes with that? You know, this is what we get to navigate and have some maybe cleansing, you know, tears and grief work we get to do around that. I mean, that's kind of the essence of it, right?
Yeah. And as women, we've maybe only been 25% alive. I mean, because of all of that. And it's like, hey, let's do it. I mean, let's feel that we deserve it, that we can empower it. And before class today, I thought it was so funny. I was literally out digging the dirt, removing all the roots, because I'm in a lawn in a 400 square feet that I've been digging and removing all the old roots from. And then when I came on class, I went, whoa, that's too weird. I literally said I would rather have this brown earth in my hands than all the gold that could be given. And it was so weird. It was just, I was so connecting to it.
Wow.
That's awesome,
Very cool.
Mary.
Yeah.
Thank you. We've got some more time if anybody else.
I know, I'm telling you, Gemini has made this time so different.
I know.
I was just looking, we were talking about Ereshkigal. It felt like 5 hours and it was like 5 minutes.
I want to say thank you first to all of the group for the love and the support of each other. It's just amazing, and it's beautiful to see, just not only with myself, but just with each other, and to witness that. And also big thank you to Kaylin and Tammy for bringing this amazing knowledge and in the way that you do it. And I've been just seeing the material in the videos and in the Underworld and this gate. I was just really moved by the care, the level of the care and the love and the humor and joy that you put in the material. Just choosing, I was just feeling how you choose, I mean, the photos and the text and all of the things that you bring together. It's just, it's beautiful, and it's so helpful too, because, I mean, now in the Underworld, I have to say, well, this is my second time with the Venus classes, and it really helps that I've been in the Libra cycle a lot. But in the first time, I'm in my Venus return. I was sharing this in the breakout with the lovely ladies, and so now in the Underworld, I will be having my Venus return in my natal chart. But I was born in the root chakra gate. But the first time, I didn't want to see the video in the underworld. I was so pissed off with my own soul. And I was just, why did you choose the underworld? Come on, please. Why didn't you choose it like evening stars, bright, but the underworld? Really? And my Venus, my natal Venus is in Aquarius. I mean, so it's just I was more like Persephone, I don't go there. And so I didn't want even to see the video. And I was tracking in my life when the underworld phases have been, and it has been really intense and difficult, and especially difficult. So now in this gate, I was just, I'm going to prepare myself, like Inanna going to the underworld with knives and weapons. But really, but in my case, it's just healing weapons. And also I want to bring joy. This is something that I'm talking with my guides to, okay, I've been going to the underworld, my Venus in Aquarius, but we should have fun. And let's bring the healing tools, because in my path I have to do a lot of ancestral healing. So let's just, it really helps a lot for me to be in the second time, because you can bring this consciousness, and with all of the tools that you bring in the classes, it's really, really helpful. So I feel very different than in the other time. Entering in the underworld. I'm prepared. Okay, let's go there, but I'm prepared. So I'm really, really thankful. And I have a couple of questions about, it's about this Venus return thing. How much it covers? How much is it included? Like, is the whole cycle of the Gemini, or is it, or it's not only like the gate we are born when we are in the Venus return, or just the day the Venus is returning in the natal chart? Is the whole cycle, I guess, with some hot spots maybe when it's just the gate?
I like,
well said.
It's definitely the whole cycle, from the time Venus rises, morning star, till she rises in a new sign in a new cycle, 19 months. It's an initiatory journey of 19 months, definitely.
Yeah.
When we first started looking at this information back in the 90s, we would look at it like around the birthday. And that was it. And then we started to realize, wait a second, there's way more going on here. And so it's kind of evolved since that time. And the other thing that I wanted to say, oh gosh, just forgot what it was. Tammy, you maybe go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, but yeah, no, I think it's actually incredibly significant and important. And I feel lucky that I started doing this when you had decided, you and Daniel had kind of made the decision that it would be, or had seen it show up as the entire cycle. Because we've seen it again and again, that it is a descent and rebirth cycle, so that you're working with clients and you can tell them, it's the first thing that I look for really is, are you going through a Venus return? And if you are, everything else is in that context. You're going through a larger death and rebirth process. But yeah, your birthday, it is the exact, you could say, Venus return, because Venus and the sun are going to be closest to the same relationship they were when you were born. So that's, but yeah. Did you remember what you were going to say, Kayla?
Yes, I did. Hot spots. So even if you're not in a Venus return, but you have a lot of Gemini in your chart, or you're the Beta goddess that's on the world stage, or if you're in a Venus return, and say, like when I went through my age 48 Venus return, I was in a Pluto cycle. And so not only was the underworld hell, but my whole life was hell before the whole time, because I was in a Pluto cycle, not to my Venus, to my moon. But so everything had to be dismantled. So there can be hot spots along the way. And one of the things I like to pay attention to is at the Venus moon gates, is that activating something on your personal chart?
Yeah.
And if so, then that gate is significant to you, even if it's not your Venus return.
Yeah.
That can be a significant gate to pay attention to and to really work with more strongly. So yeah, I was watching, as we were going through some of the things happening in the underworld, I'm like, oh my God, these things that are happening, they're right on certain exact aspects of my chart.
Yeah, right.
I'm
Totally, me too. It's like, oh man. Yeah, so it just deepens it. And also we do more of this in the comprehensive Venus signature series, but it can definitely, if like I'm born at the solar plexus chakra gate morning star, and every Venus cycle that we go through, I'm going to use that moment, that period, as a time to do the deeper work around that. and themes will show up. It might be a little more significant to me. And again, when Venus is in the same kind of energetic in the sky, even if it's a different seasonal cycle.
Yeah. And that's that can be really powerful and help deepen everything.
Yeah.
So,
and I love how you,
oh, go ahead.
no, well, I love also how you say that Venus is traveling with the sun. That has been helping me very much because it's just not alone in the hell. I mean, it's just with the sun. I mean, it's cool. So
It's
I'm
the light and life of our planet.
yes, and that is very helpful. Yes,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
It's sourcing a new way of being. Yeah, so good.
And how about the chart of the countries? That this came to me just very recently. You are both awesome astrologers, and I was just wondering about the natal chart of the country we are born, and also in the chart we are living now. If the countries even they have Venus cycles, and if we interact with those natal chart of the countries, I would love to know what do you think about this. I'm just very curious about it.
That'd be a very fun class.
It
It would be a really fun class. We really haven't done
We looked
much
at it
about
a little bit in the Libra cycle only because when the USA they did the Declaration of Independence, the Venus cycle was a Libra cycle. And even though it wasn't an 8-year, it's like on a different point of the pentacle. But that felt very significant.
Yep. Yeah, it brings in, and when you're talking about that and you're talking about centuries, it adds in a whole other layer. When you're talking about human lifetimes, timelines, then you're looking at kind of a smaller, just the pentagram. But once you venture past really like 100 years into several hundred or thousand, whatever, then you're getting into more complex Venus cycles because there are cycles within cycles.
And all the points of the pentagram,
yeah, they shift.
All the seasonal signs over 1,200 years.
Yeah,
1,260 years, I think, is how long it takes. So, yeah.
And there's different elliptical patterns, or what do you call? What's the
lemniscates?
Lemniscates. Yeah. I don't know if there's anyone here. I think Monica's here. She may remember, and Genevieve, that when we went to the Sekhmet temple. And we did a little very small, but a very alive, like Venus workshop. When Morningstar rose, Leo Morningstar rose at that temple, we actually did this kind of enactment of the lemniscape of Venus, when she was in that phase of the cycle. Because clearly we could do so many more courses, and we want to, as this is grounded now, as we're completing our final, in more of this really juicy stuff that really nobody would understand until they get the basics, which we've all been doing in an embodied way. We've all been learning. It's deceptively easy or simple in some ways, but everyone in the circle who's done this, once or twice, and those who have done this every time, you have this in your bones. This is something you live now. And so there's this opening then to the deeper mysteries that can come through understanding more the technical side as well.
Yeah, and I would have to say that I had worked with my own Venus cycles, but I hadn't really worked with other ones as much, except maybe helping guide people through it or whatever before we started doing this work. Now I feel like I have a whole new understanding of all of it. And I'm sure that will continue to grow and evolve, because you know what? It's not just that you come up with a certain thing and a certain way of looking at it and that's it. Because we're growing and evolving, and we're going to keep growing and evolving our understanding.
Yep.
Experience.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So I wanted to say something that Mary wrote, because in the very first class, I think I did the thing about the 369, a chant that I learned as a kid that many of you may recognize. 369, the goose drank wine, the monkey chewed tobacco on the streetcar line, the line broke, the monkey choked, and they all went to heaven in a little rowboat. So I rewrote it to say 369, now's the time. I'm actively living in a new timeline. The time is now. I'm living how I'm meant to be in my radiant rainbow light body. And so Mary just wrote 369, this is the time to employ a brand new joy. Yes. I love it. So good.
That's awesome.
So
What a good way to end.
yeah.
We're at time.
So yeah. Unless anybody has anything burning, I think we are complete, and we hope you all have a great time in the underworld. You can contact us if you need to. We will
Yeah.
be doing our first evening star class. We might do something in the underworld. In fact, we
We
will
probably will. We usually
do
do.
something in the underworld.
Yeah, it'll be good to gather, right?
Yeah.
We'll probably need it just as much as you do.
Yeah. So, all right.
All right. So maybe you want to unmute yourselves. So let's just have a wow.
Love to you all
Yeah, much gratitude to you.
and gratitude. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
From
everyone.
your
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.